Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rexfield Investigates podcast, where we are Rexfield and we do what we say. We investigate. This is our first episode, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking through all different types of cybercrime. We're going to explain how it works, giving real examples of things that we're seeing on the ground, giving real war stories on things that we've seen behind the scenes. But yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do to get this kicked off. So, for everybody here, this is episode one. And like with all good things like Star Wars, it's never really started at episode one. This kind of started at episode four. I am the CTO with Rexfield. My name is Ronnie Tokazowski. And I've got our CEO, Stephen Dougherty, here, who is also here with Rexfield and doing a lot of fun things. So, Stephen, welcome.
Yep. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks for having me on. I think we're going to put together episodes detailing some of our crazy stories with our investigations as they roll out. Um, just even today has been a day in terms of our investigative world that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
yeah,
think it, and like I know you and me, like we've talked extensively and stuff behind the scenes, and we've been working together from one way, shape, or form for almost 10 years now. And like I know you and I have had this conversation multiple times that the things we get exposed to and the things that we see are way outside the norm than what most people realize. And like some of the things like with borderline on a conspiracy theory, but it's like no, we actually saw that. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely got a lot of fun and crazy stories.
And let me clarify. You said way outside the norm. That's way outside the norm for most people.
Hmm.
For us, it kind of becomes normal at the end of the day
Yeah.
when you and I sit down and talk about how our day went, and we're like, yeah,
Yeah, or the time where we were talking about how magic in one country was stronger than magic in another, but that'll probably be an episode all in of itself.
oh yeah,
So
don't give away the hand.
no, no,
That's that's content hopefully for another day.
but
But
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah,
We'll probably touch on that multiple times as
yeah,
that's something that
definitely,
kind of shaped you and you might. We'll
yeah,
talk about that one for
yeah.
sure.
Ideologies are strange. So what got you from like? So let's go back to episode four, where it all started. The initial plans for the Death Star had been stolen. Leia came back with them. Put them on the bot, and a lot of times we have victims coming up saying, "Help us, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope." So Ben, go for it. What's what's the history and that got you from like back then to here? That might be interesting for listeners to hear.
Particularly if we're starting kind of in the middle. That's when you and I were really kind of in the fight, man. Um, Geez, you had all the private sector information coming in
Hmm.
that can be exploited in successful investigations. You and I kind of worked out our subterfuge of sharing information in a way that it can go from the private sector to assisting with larger scale transnational organized crime investigations. And that's where we really kind of started to see the shit. You know, you had a direct insight into a lot of TTPs of our bad actors, and we were able to exchange that information, which I then had to reverse engineer,
Hmm.
right? Take it
Yep.
from what we knew our bad actors were doing, and it always starts with the saying, we know what they're doing, but how do you prove it,
Hmm.
right? So that's where we kind of had that gap that we had to bridge. So starting in the middle there, that's when I think you and I are both high octane in terms of our investigations, working the 24-hour or 20-hour days, dealing with rapid response, incident response, and then trying to juggle these investigations to get the highest impact possible.
Yep. I
And
remember some of the early cases that you and I worked together that we worked pretty solid. It was a case called Scattered Canary, and this was back when I was working at Agari. And for those who haven't read the Scattered Canary report, I highly recommend going to look it up. But for that specific crime and kind of for that specific group, there were several individuals who had a Nigerian nexus, and we identified them through a business email compromise attack, and we had gained access to some of the data collections that they were using. So we had access to things like what was the type of fraud they were carrying out, who were the victims they were directly hitting, what was the specific loan number on the SBA account that they were opening. And like I know at one point we had like over 128 accounts that they were using. I know you saw a lot of stuff with them as well, but good news, that group many of the people in that group ended up getting arrested. But
Hmm.
it was definitely a big insight into just that criminal ecosystem that people just didn't realize. And I know for me, a lot of work that I did around like the 2015, 2017 timeframe was helping rewrite that narrative for business email compromise, because so many people saw it as like a single silo where they're like, oh, this is the only thing that's happening. But from the visibility we got specific to that case, we had a split view from like 2010 to like 2019, and we saw them going from romance scams to FEMA fraud to check fraud to business email compromise, and then from there, that was when they went after other government entities too. And that was kind of the biggest thing, the biggest eye opener there was like I never realized how much was overlapping with that.
Right, right. It's the infrastructure is amazing, and I want to give props to the U.S. Secret Service. Just an amazing job, a tremendous group of investigators to really help push that investigation through. And it kind of showed the power that the Secret Service can have in standing up and spinning up large scale operations in a quick, agile, and efficient sense. And I can't give more credit to the great people there that worked on that investigation.
So over
Um,
that time period, how much money was recovered? Because I know that's always a big question, is like you hear these stories where they're like, we never got money back, this never happened, one person says this thing, but like how much money actually came back?
you talking about in total or just in the scattered canary op?
Let's go in total.
Geez. Me and my team in the JIOC, and we'll get into the JIOC, the Global Investigative Operations Center, and some of their different parts. Again, tremendous work there. But my team, the Business Email Compromise Mission Desk, and they're still continuing that mission to this day. When I left, was sitting at about $500 million of money directly returned back to victims, and that's an important phrase there, directly return back to victims, because we actually were able to work it back through contacts through the network you set up through the BEC list and all of those things, that we had this great symbiotic partnership. And over $500 million that went directly back to victims. That means it didn't have to go through a seizure process. There was little litigation surrounding it. It was literally just that money, working it back and putting it back into the victims, making them whole as quickly as possible. So 500 million,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
and if not more. And I know the desk continues to do amazing work to this day. So that numbers is tremendously bigger than when I left it.
And that's the thing people need to realize, is that for every single penny of that, that's going back directly to the victims. And not only that, but like, how many times would you have a call with a victim who was practically in tears saying, like, I almost lost all my money for this housing transaction. I had all this stuff stolen. I have no idea where to turn. Like
In
that.
tears or were in tears?
Why not both?
I mean, just speaking those people, what really shakes out to be some of the worst moments of their life. Really, is one of the things that called me to action, and obviously calls you to action, and all of our great network of people that we've worked with and continue to work with. It's that sense, of empathy to understand, or try to at least understand what they're going through. And, that's one of the things where I could never truly wrap my head around what they were actually going through, because one, every person's different, everybody has a different reaction to it, as you've seen.
Oh
we
yeah,
have
definitely,
we have
definitely.
victims who reach out to Rexfield who may have lost $3,000, and it's the worst thing
It
ever.
tears them up. It tears them up. Yeah, I had
And
a call this weekend, as a matter of fact, where it was where she was a romance scam victim. She lost $3,000, and for her, it had nothing to do with the money. Like that wasn't the upsetting part. Emotionally, there was a lot for her going through, is because she had to come to the sense that that person wasn't real. She had to come to sense with the fact that she now lost that relationship. And a lot of people don't realize it, but there's actually, like, when somebody dies, there's a grieving phase there, and our body sees and treats that the same way in the case of with a lot of these scam victims. And like, people don't understand that there's actually a grieving phase to a fake digital relationship like that, for lack of a better word.
Yep. With the work that you've done, and I talk about that $500 million coming back, and some of this, the effect it has on people. We have other victims that reach out to Rexfield, and they've lost, $750,000, $1 million, and they're just like, "Meh, money's money." I
That's
just
a
want to
good
know who's
clip. We
doing
both
this.
did the Met at the same time.
Well, you and I have been in sync for a long time here,
Yeah,
so we got that going for us. Our Jedi mind tricks,
yeah,
on each other.
yeah. Use the Schwartz, Han.
Uh-huh. There we go. There we go.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, like you said, there's victims that yeah, they can shrug off a quarter, $750,000 like it's nothing. It's like, it's just money at that point. And yeah, it all comes back to like that emotional baggage of some people can handle that, some people can't. It just depends on how they were raised, their childhood, and all the way back that far for a lot of these things.
yeah, yeah, and it's
Hmm.
just everybody's different. So when we work that angle of working with our victims, we have to really take that into account.
Hmm.
We'll talk a lot more about your the anti-scam education you put out and the
Hmm.
strategies and things along those lines. Not to, you know, give away give away the goods for you, but we'll touch on
It's
some of
all
that.
connected. It's all connected.
But yeah, it really is.
Hmm.
Even from the vulnerability of the fraud schemes, and again, in our hopefully long tenured podcasting future, we'll touch upon that as
Hmm.
well. This is just an introduction, guys. There's
Yeah,
plenty more where this came from
yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to what we can talk about from what we've seen and how we
Hmm.
respond.
Yep, yeah. And
But
and
more
the
so
main goal.
coming into that, good.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say the main goals here is to put this information out so that people can kind of see that and realize, one, they're not alone in that scam. Two, they're not alone in that fraud. Three, they're not alone. And four, they can understand how it works so they can know, okay, here's the resources that we can get. And I know there's a lot of times, again, with a lot of the victims that we work with, there's a level of confusion of what goes on. I know you and I have kind of done this there for the whole time, but we're also trying to be that level of calm for the victims to kind of say, okay, here's your next steps, here's what you can do. Because a lot of times, I know they share the sentiment with me all the time. Is like they're like, we have no one else to go to. We have no idea where to go, what to do, and it's as you nailed it. It's literally their worst day of their life, and people are saying, "Oh, you're stupid, you're dumb," which is absolutely not the case. Dumb.
Yep. I want to quote the great Sarah Boynton, and I'm going to butcher a British accent right now. But, even I would be amped up from getting a case in where money went overseas, and she was always, it still is one of the best
Hmm.
at tracking those funds down. And she would always just very calmly say, "It's okay, darling. We'll get this sorted."
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, I think I threw in a little bit of a South African twang to that, but
That's fine. That's
yeah,
fine.
but just her British and that calmness, and she kind of has taught a lot of us that as we've
Hmm.
been working with her. But yeah, oh, darling, we'll get this sorted.
Yep.
Don't worry.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's what we like to provide from the Rexfield stance is
Hmm.
we'll get this sorted.
Yeah, she is my second favorite Sarah, only because my sister's name is Sarah, but she's definitely right up there. So some days it switches depending on how much my sister pisses me off. But hey, yeah, Sarah, she's awesome.
All
So
right, but that's big competition. That's
mhm.
that's the that your sister Sarah has a lot going for her based off of that
Hmm.
alone. So.
Yep, yep. So for the Rexfield side, is there any direction that you want to do? Anything you want to say? Anything interesting that you're working on?
I mean, interesting things that we're working on. We're really seeing kind of just this blurred line overlap of all the different crimes. We're seeing it from the victim's perspective. And then when we're reaching out to our partners, whether that's in banking, whether that's in other digital forensics or crypto, what have you, they're seeing their own derivations of these fraud schemes, right? And so at Rexfield, really what we want to start pushing is look, this affects everybody. We all kind of have to work together to make this happen. Great Matt O'Neill and the great Michael Centrella were on their own podcast the other day, and Mr.
Hmm.
Centrella was just driving home that relationships really are the biggest thing in these, and you need to have strong relationships, and that's everybody across the board. So
Hmm.
at Rexfield, as we're working our cases, as we're interfacing with victims and our colleagues, it's to really build those relationships and trust. And whatever we can do, we want to keep building that, push that forward, because again, at the end of the day, that just helps everybody that much more. If we save one person or help one person, that means all the difference, to everybody. So it starts with one. Hopefully we get to many.
Yep. And the great thing is when you help that one, more times than not, there's other victims there too. So even that one kind of spiders out to a lot of other cases. And with that, it's like, yeah, helping that one person, you don't know how much of a difference in their life that you can make. And in many of these cases, it's literally like people taking their own lives as a result of this. And we've both seen it. And it sucks.
Oh yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
unfortunate reality. But if you can save a life, you save a life. And that's what's important.
One of the great things you're working on, Rexfield, is figuring out a way to compare what's happening to one victim and discover that across the board so we can discover the scam infrastructure. And at the end of the day at Rexfield, our job, obviously we investigate. With that investigative information, our job is to disrupt and smash scammers down to the atom, right? We want to disrupt their infrastructure and dismantle their infrastructure to make it harder for them to do their jobs.
Yep. As a friend of mine in InfoSec says, we make bad people sad. So if we can disrupt their infrastructure, cool. And when we say disruption, we're not talking, oh, we're taking this thing down. Like, we will troll the ever living shit out of the people and do it with a smile. Because if we can make their life harder, if we can make their operations harder, if we can creatively drive up their cost of revenue, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to make it to where it's so confusing and convoluted. The attackers have no idea what we're doing. I know we had one BEC case where we did that, and we ended up getting the chatter from that specific attacker. They were saying that with some of the work that we were doing, they thought it was either rival hackers or terrorists that were in the email account, and that went directly back to the victim. And we were working with the victim at the time, so that's how confused they were. It's like, if we can spread that confusion, make them second guess what they're doing, again, we're going to do it. So I think that's a good spot to end on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So real quick parting word. If you're coming across this podcast and you're hit with a cybercrime, reach out to Rexfield. Mm-hmm. We'll figure out a way to help.
Yeah, that's 2 X's, and yeah, we'll do what we can to help. So from there, Steve and Ronnie signing off. Live long and prosperous, Han. So as quoted by the famous wizard Harry Potter with Spock, nano. So.
Oh, you're gonna make people mad.
I know. That way I could equally piss off the nerds. So I'm like,
there you go.
Equally piss everybody off. So have fun. Take care. See you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you like, make sure that you hit the like, the subscribe, or whatever you need to do on your favorite platform. If you want to reach out to us, go to rexfield.com. That's REXXFIELD.com. Thank you much. Take care. See you at the next episode. Bye for now.